record. This is Practically Culture, a podcast devoted to TV, movies, sometimes video games, and other pop culture. I'm your host, Logan Bowe, podcasting from Salt Lake City, and I'm joined as always by the one, the only podcast on the Bay Area. How are you, Bob?
Hey, doing great. How's it going with you?
Just hanging out. You know me.
Nice.
Welcome to our main show. This week we review Sorry to Bother You, and we have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. If you like what you hear, look for us in your usual podcast app and at practicallyculture.com. We recommend you check it all out if you're into the show. It's TV, it's movies, sometimes video games. It's Practically Culture. Let's rock. Oh, man, it is good to be back, Bob. And I have a confession.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking about dipping a toe back into the World of Warcraft waters.
Oh, no. I mean, why am I disappointed or upset?
No. You have reason to be a little wary. The new expansion drops today.
Okay.
And I've been offered a job as the tank on a raid team, which is what I like doing.
All right.
The question is, can I manage to play just a few hours a week? I mean, normally I put in like 20 plus hours a week when I'm really into it. And I can't afford to do that right now. So I'll somehow see if I can maybe kind of play as a total casual. Maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the type of game that allows for that so super easily. I want to make a plea to our listeners and be like, everyone write in and tell Logan not to do it. And we need him podcasting more. That's what's important. That's my selfish perspective.
Well, I'm hoping that I can keep it under control. And if it gets too big, then I've already told the guy who is trying to get me back that I may have to bail if I just can't manage it. But I think I'm going to give it a shot. We'll see. Wish me luck.
All right. Good luck out there.
And, this week we were releasing a new sister podcast, which we are calling the Practically Culture Spoiler Cast. And, we're going to be spoiling things, whether it's movies, TV, or video games. Sometimes you just want to get more into it. And so now we will.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this, actually. I could talk about this for hours, but we don't do that because we're a podcast with limited time. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the point is we talk about these movies and we keep saying things like, oh, I wish I could say this, or I don't want to spoil it, or blah, 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 blah. And it's nice to have, your fix of what to go and watch. So, this feed will still exist, but you're going to want to tune in for the real conversation once you've seen it. Or in some cases, I think we're going to play with it. You don't really need to see the movie in a lot of ways if we tell you not to. So you may as well just hear our version of it and it'll be more fun and more useful.
Yeah, that is a good point. And just some technical information, we'll probably release the spoiler cast in this same feed, but we'll also drop a unique feed for the spoiler cast if for some reason you just want to listen to those.
Yep.
So check that out in your podcast apps too.
Nice.
Anyway, ready to get to this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sorry to Bother You. In an alternate present-day version of Oakland, telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, propelling him to a universe of greed. Starring Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Jermaine Fowler, and Armie Hammer. Written and directed by Boots Riley, who I believe this is his first feature. He's like a rapper or something like that.
Sure.
Anyway, hit us with the minute review, Bob.
All right, here goes. Sorry to Bother You. Starts out clever and has something to say about race and capitalism, but then it goes nuts halfway through and becomes a giant mess of trying to say everything about anything while saying not much more than nothing. 3 out of 5, I want to say. Sure. I mean,
is that the right answer?
I don't know. I don't want to not like this movie, but I really don't like it that much. Anyway, let's hear your movie review and then we'll go from there.
All right. My mini review. It's certainly subversive and disorienting, and quite funny at times. I mostly liked it, but is it good? I don't know. Is it completely successful? I'm saying no. 3 out of 5.
Okay. We're both on the fence of what to do with this in terms of our classic number scale, but forget about that. Let's talk about it. What's going on with this movie?
Well, and it is hard because 3 can sometimes be sort of like a meh, whatever movie. But this one certainly made you have certain reactions, strong reactions to this movie. It just nets out to a 3, but it's a different way of getting to a 3.
Yeah, because there are a lot of components that intrigued me and had me interested. It's just that it took so many risks and left turns that it was just too much. And there's just so much of it that I don't think was successful in what it was trying to do. So maybe enough abstract talk. Do we want to go through some of the plot? Or, this is also one, that's going to be good for the spoiler cast. So stay tuned for that version of this conversation, because this movie does change quite a bit halfway through. So we can't really talk much about more than just the first half, I want to say.
That is true. And turns out we will be hitting this on the spoiler cast this week. So if you want to hear more, and if you maybe want to just be able to talk about the movie without actually having seen it, come over to the spoiler cast. But we'll do our best for this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a 3 out of 5. So, I mean, you don't need to spend money on this thing necessarily.
Okay, so the brief rundown of the plot, or at least the kind of plot that we can give. I mean, you see a lot of in the previews, right? So Cassius Green, I guess, is this guy. He lives in a garage, has a girlfriend, but his life isn't really going anywhere. He gets his job as a telemarketer, and he finds out that if you use your white voice, which the white voice is
David Cross.
David Cross, that's right.
Which is a great white voice.
That's a pretty white voice, yeah. But all of a sudden you get to be super successful as a black person doing telemarketing. And so so he rises the ranks, but there's some friction because some people who are workers, they want him to combine with them and organize and fight the power a little bit more. And so he has that sort of tension. And to be honest, that's sort of what you get in the previews, and it takes a lot of left turns. I don't know if I really want to talk too much more about the plot, because if you want to watch it and get a fresh experience, then you can't really know much more.
Yeah, I will say the plot sticks to the themes loosely of race and capitalism. I think that's the through line, even if the dial goes to 11 and some crazy shit happens for the second half. It's still all about race and race and capitalism, right? Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's what it's trying to talk about. So that said, what are things we can talk about? There are some really funny parts. Like it is really funny when he does the white voice. It's like Glover. What's his name? It's not Donald Glover.
It's Danny Glover. It's the original.
The original Glover.
The original Glover.
He's got like Steve Buscemi's voice, right? When he tries to do the white voice.
That's the rumor. Yeah, it sounds like Buscemi. Yeah.
So he shows him how to do it, and it really is really funny when they do the white voice and they get success. And visually the way they do it is like he drops into their living rooms and disturbs them. At least that's how visually they do it, and it's pretty funny. It is a great part of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is satire and a lot of artistic choices made that just make it captivating, the way the editing is done and the music, the cinematography. I think it's actually, I mean, for this being his first movie, I thought it was quite nicely put together.
Yeah, pretty well done for first movie. Better than I could do, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a party that is so bizarre and wild. Armie Hammer throws it. There's like I'll just say that when Cassius tries to start rapping, it's hilarious and offensive, but it's funny.
It is kind of funny, yeah. So they are playing with the difference between black people and white people and what the right way to participate in certain activities is. And it's funny when roles are reversed, both from a voice modulation perspective, but then also just what you do at a party. Like, he's supposed to be good at rapping because he's black. And of course, the white people are like, rap for us, which of course that's already a statement right there. Like, telling somebody to rap for you on demand is probably not anything decent humans at this point would foist on each other, but whatever. I don't know where I'm going. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. The reason for that party is because Armie Hammer plays the CEO of a crazy company that is, I want to say, some combination of like Tesla and Google, and that's not nice because he plays kind of a caricature of a CEO who tries to be your friend and is caring, but at the same time is getting away with a lot of stuff.
But it's got this like douchebag, but like partly charming and partly repulsive vibe, and he's having a great time. And anything with Armie Hammer is super hilarious in this movie too, I think.
It really is. He was the perfect white boy for that role.
And we often talk about the acting performances. I did think a lot of the acting performances are good. Armie Hammer, we just talked about having a great time. We mentioned Danny Glover in there quickly. Lakeith
Mhm.
Stanfield, who's the main guy. He's also in Atlanta. I think he's doing well at sort of this normal but slightly confused just about how life is a lot weirder than he ever thought it would be, but trying to make
Mhm.
his way through it sort of guy.
Yeah.
Um,
He's trying to be just a normal guy. Of everyone, he has a girlfriend played by Tessa Thompson, and she's kind of got the whole like extreme left angle going on a little bit. Like she's a activist, but it's hard to know exactly what she's fighting for. She has a lot of art, obviously. um,
obviously.
um, right, but her character kind of bugged me, to be honest. But I think that was maybe on purpose. I don't know.
Oh, really? Well, she's I heard some people talking about it, and I think that Boots Riley, the director and writer, sort of thinks of her as the conscience of the movie. So whether or not you agree with that moral compass or not, she's the
Huh.
one who's always against the capitalism or the oppressive racism and things like that. And it's interesting the way they do that because she's sort of with him at the beginning, but when Cassius departs from that agenda and is going with the racists and the capitalists a little bit more, she'll still hook up with them, but they're like not officially together at that point. But then when he comes
Yeah.
back at the end, spoiler alert, whatever. But when he sort of aligns most when he aligns again with most of the program, then they actually get together again. I guess that's sort of the dalliance with the conscience of the movie.
I guess, but that's supposed to be the conscience of the movie is you kind of only are with someone if it's convenient or because you like them, and then you dump them once they cross a line. But then there was also a throwaway in the middle there where she kind of goes and has a relationship with somebody else, and then the movie tried to make this side point of like, oh, that's not a big deal. Don't don't worry about that. She's entitled to do that if she wants to, and
Well,
it's
I mean, I don't. What I'm saying is, I think it's more figurative. Like you can be in
sure.
a relationship with the goodness in the world, but if you depart and you leave the things that are good, being woke about capitalism and racism, then you can't have a full relationship with your muse or with your conscience.
I
Uh,
see.
I don't think it was meant to be relationship advice or anything like that.
Okay. I would just say for me, the main character had conscience enough. I thought his struggle with capitalism and trying to be woke, I guess as we're calling it, was more believable and more in line with, how we all sort of want to assume factory farming doesn't exist, but a lot of us eat meat or whatever. You can pick your example, whereas her approach to solving problems or being woke just wasn't compelling to me. It seemed like, oh, if that's what that is, um, yeah, I couldn't be with her for very long at all.
Well, all right. Maybe we all have that conflicted relationship with our consciences. I don't know.
Something, yeah.
And then, of course, we can't go on without mentioning that shit gets super weird in the second part of this movie.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a what the fuck movie, and we're going to talk about that more maybe on the other spoiler cast. But yeah, there's some points where in previous moments in our lives, Logan, I don't know how old you would have been versus how old I would have been for when we would have walked out of this movie. But probably even into my 20s quite a bit. I would have not stayed around for the second half of this movie.
It gets weird. I mean, we'll call it some magical realism, I suppose. But it's not. It's an alternate reality sort of a movie. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's very
Um,
provocative and shows some things that are offensive your grandma would not like. The themes just stay on those same themes of race and capitalism, but just to the nth degree. It's a bit much.
yeah, and I have to say that although a lot of it's provocative, a lot of it I think spirals out of control a little bit.
Yep.
I'm not sure that it really is successful in saying much. Like if it were a little more under control, I feel like it might have been more powerful, at least for me. But yeah.
Right. Same thing. That's why my mini review kind of says like this is trying to be everything and have something to say about a lot of important themes, but then it's in over its head, and I can't walk away recommending it because it doesn't. I don't know what I'm endorsing or what I learned. I was definitely entertained, and I'm intrigued, and I even going on the internet after you watch this kind of movie, you're like, yeah, everyone's confused. Okay, got it. Good, not just me.
Well, and sometimes I like to say, "Oh, well, I get it" in a certain way when it's a confusing movie, but this one I think was a little over my head too.
Right. Yeah, and I guess we should just leave it there for now.
All right, leaving it there, I guess. So there you go. Not practically endorsed.
Nope, not
If
at
you want
all.
to hear more, are you thinking of not seeing it at all? Swing on over to the spoiler cast this week.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's get to some mini reviews, Bob. Why don't you go first? Do you have a mini review for us?
Yeah, so I want to start with Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. This was a fun impromptu date night, and here's the mini review.
All right.
So I loved the idea of this flighty excuse of a movie as a reason for fun set pieces, musical numbers, and choreography. But honestly, I just wasn't as into it this time, even if it had its moments. I'm going with a 3 out of 5. It's it's fine. It's exactly as it should be for a nice short mini review on our podcast.
But what's striking to me is just how inadequate the number ratings sometimes are. If both Sorry to Bother You and Mamma Mia are 3 out of 5s, but they feel so different.
They're so different. Yeah, the number only gets you so far, people. Yeah, it's very true. So this is a sequel, and it comes like 10 years after the last one. And spoiler alert, it happens in like the first 2 minutes, but Meryl Streep really isn't in this movie much. I read online there might have just been a scheduling conflict or so. Anyway, they construct a whole plot around her character basically, well, having died. And it's her daughter, played by Amanda Seyfried, who was also in the first movie, who's trying to like do kind of a reopen the hotel in Greece where all these fun, flighty, good times happen. And it's in memory of her mom. And then there's a ton of flashbacks. It's definitely a flashback movie where we get a lot of like Meryl Streep as a young woman meeting all of the 3 men that she ends up having relationships with. Because if you remember back to the first movie, people, part of the gimmick is Amanda Seyfried's character as the only daughter has 3 fathers because we're not sure which of the 3 guys is the one, and those are the ones that are played by Colin Firth and James Bond and the Swedish guy. They're fun actors. I forgot to write down all their names. Pierce Brosnan is James Bond. That one I don't need to write down. Anyway, Andy Garcia shows up for a bit. Cher shows up. Everyone's having a good time. There's musical numbers, but they're kind of the B-sides of ABBA instead of like the heavy hitters from the first movie. Some of them are repeats because, everybody loves Dancing Queen. You're not just going to like not have that in the movie, and as well as some others like Mamma Mia. It's fine. If you like musicals and you like ABBA and you like whimsical about nothing sort of movies, it's fine. It's just that it's forgettable, and I have my thing with flashbacks, and it's totally a lot of flashbacks.
All right. Cool. Well, when you're describing who might like it, it sounded like me, maybe. You like musicals, like
Did you see the first one?
No, I didn't actually. Maybe we'll have to get on that.
I recommend the first one, and then if you like that a lot, then this one is sure. But if you're like, oh, that was okay, then you've seen it all.
Got it. Okay, well, I've got a mini review for us. But first, it occurs to me, I forgot to mention something else to our podcast listeners, and we're doing video again.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Check us out on YouTube, Practically Culture, wherever, put that in the search. How do you find things? I'm sure they'll figure it out.
That's right. I mean, we did video clips a lot of years ago, but we're doing them again. Our video quality and our audio quality has improved since those, halcyon days, whatever you want to call them.
Way back in 2013.
But you can check us out on YouTube again. Anyway, just thought I'd get that in there before I forget again.
Nice. Glad you did.
Anyway, my mini review is Barry on HBO. Nice. Here we go. It seems gimmicky at first, but it quickly gets pretty real and really good. You should definitely watch it. 4 out of 5.
I like you. I think you were looking at me when you said that, both figuratively and literally. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, this is the one. It's got Bill Hader as a hitman, who, in the course of his job, he goes on a hit to L.A. and then he falls in love with acting because he's in L.A. and he gets really conflicted about being a hitman. But the thing is, he's like really good at being a hitman, but hates it, and he sucks at being an actor, but loves it.
Mm.
So that provides a lot of the juice for the show. But there's also love interests and I think the Chechen mob. I think it might be the Chechen mob.
I think you're right.
That they deal with a lot. And it's got that. It's certainly comedy first. Bill Hader is obviously comedic, and one of the Chechen mob guys is just a real funny, sort of weird guy. But the themes of how you justify unethical things you do, or like I said, not loving what you're good at, or loving what you're not good at, relationships. It just has a lot to say about a lot of those things, and it's one of those comedies that hits deeper and makes you think. I really liked it, and I think it's a recommend from me.
Nice. I love it. I started watching it even last night, actually, based on your recommendation, and you're making me want to keep watching it. After the first episode, without your recommendation, I would have been like, oh, I can maybe, but I see where it's going and I'm excited.
Yeah. Give it a few more episodes. It gets pretty good, I think.
Cool.
Do you have another mini review for us, Bob?
I do. I want a mini review. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End.
A PlayStation game?
I know. So big announcement here. There's a lot of announcements on this show. I got a PlayStation. I'm typically an Xbox gamer, but this is my first fully completed, reviewed PlayStation game since I got it. A month ago. So here goes. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. This is basically the pinnacle of classic gaming, storytelling, adventure, and fun gameplay, all mixed together for an experience with characters you love and gameplay you enjoy across beautiful settings. 9.5 out of 10.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's like the highest modern video game score I've ever given. Not to make a big deal out of these numbers that I'm getting less attached to the more I use them, but this is a really, really good game, and I can see why people say Sony has a lead in terms of, well, they do just from the perspective of units sold of their PlayStation consoles, but they just do better with original content that's exclusive. So you can only get this on the PlayStation 4, and you're really missing out if you're not playing it. I want to say the closest analogy for someone like you who doesn't have a PlayStation.
Oh, someone like me. Okay, you're not a PlayStation person. I gotcha.
Okay, what I'm trying to say.
You just say that as though like, oh yeah, I've had a PlayStation for decades.
I was just trying to be helpful, but I see how that could have been misread. Okay. What I'm trying to say is someone who's a gamer and plays a lot of games, but doesn't have a PlayStation for whatever reason, would think of this similar to how they might think of like one of these modern Tomb Raider games where you're kind of doing some light gunplay, light platforming, third-person storytelling. But just think of all that, but way better and a more interesting story and even higher production value and better graphics. I mean, I'm overselling it a little bit, but only a little bit. It's really good. And this thing came out in like 2016, and it still looks better than most games that I play currently. Naughty Dog is a studio. I don't know exactly the logistics of the timeline, I want to say, when Sony acquired them a few years back, but that was a definite win. So it's number 4 in the series. I didn't play 1 through 3, by the way, another helpful tip. You don't necessarily need to. You can start right here. It gives enough backstory about Nathan Drake, the main character, and his wife. And you go on this adventure because he's really good at uncovering things with maps, and he has a history from the other games, I assume, of being kind of a professional. They don't ever call him an archaeologist, but it's got a little bit of an Indiana Jones vibe. And but he also has reasons to sort of hide some of this from his wife. So there's that story play going on.
Interesting.
It's pretty linear, but I actually almost enjoyed that more because I feel like we don't get that enough nowadays. Everyone's trying to be open world, which is fine, but this is just a straightforward, not too much to do off the beaten path, but you just enjoy every second of it. And I probably beat it in about 15 hours-ish. So definitely check it out. It's probably my favorite video game of the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I don't have a PlayStation 4, but I've always been more drawn to that one if I were to go with a console, because people seem just to be way more passionate about this and other PlayStation 4 games. I know people who are like, "Oh, I'm an Xbox player, but I bought a PlayStation 4 just for the Uncharted series." Things
You mean
like that.
people like me, more people like me. It's basically me.
No, I wasn't thinking about you for that one. What I was saying is Xbox player, but they always knew they were going to get every PlayStation 4 just for this series.
Yeah,
But you're confirming that it's a pretty good game.
yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I highly recommend it.
We'll see if I do, or if I end up playing, 30, 40, 60 hours of World of Warcraft here before I know what's going on.
Oh no!
I hope not. I hope
Get
not.
a PlayStation.
Hope it's like 5.
Let's start a fund. Get Logan a PlayStation so he doesn't play World of Warcraft too much.
All right. Well, let's get to some weekend picks. Here in the middle of August, we don't have a ton. But there's at least one that I wanted to mention that I wouldn't mention if I were doing this podcast with anyone other than you, Bob, but I'm going to do it.
Okay.
There is a documentary on Showtime coming up called Lynyrd Skynyrd, If I Leave Here Tomorrow.
Awesome.
And,
I'd watch that.
And yeah, I think if I have a Lynyrd Skynyrd friend, it's definitely you. And so I thought that I would mention that.
That is so cool. Didn't we at one point have like a goal to learn Freebird within a year? But then we never.
I don't think we're not the only ones, but that was right at passage 16 or something, right?
Right.
I don't know if it's any good, but it's on the list and it's a Showtime one, so it's probably of decent quality at least. And to be quite honest, that's really the only thing I'm going to mention here. Just you got a break here in the middle of August, catch up on something. Maybe watch some YouTubes of us with our new spoiler cast and this main show. Or let's talk movies, Bob. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so movies-wise, I want to say we've got some interesting options. So first of all, the wide release is this movie Alpha, which is it's meant to be kind of an Ice Age story, but people are speaking English and stuff about it's an epic adventure set in the last Ice Age. And it's shining a light on the origin of man's best friend. So, a young boy is coming of age and then has a wolf friend that helps him go through life. I saw the movie and it seems like, something you'd go with your family to see, although it's rated PG-13 for some intense peril, Logan. So what do you think? Any interest on your side?
I've seen some trailers. Yeah, I guess it does seem like how a story, probably more mythological than factual, about how a wolf becomes a dog or something like that. I don't know if I really have a whole lot of interest, but I could be talked into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. Well, the other wide release is Crazy Rich Asians, which I looked around every time I've seen a preview, I like, is this okay? Can I laugh at this? Is this, it's funny. It's really funny and it's getting really good reviews. And I want to say, if I may stereotype for 2 seconds, I don't feel like, I don't feel like Asians care about a movie being made about them called Crazy Rich Asians. Because any time I've talked about it with anyone, I feel like I have like all these sensitivity alarm bells going off. But for some reason, there's a comedy called Crazy Rich Asians, and it's about like crazy rich Asians, and one of them is getting married and has to introduce her not rich boyfriend to the family, and the family is like ridiculously off-putting towards people of a lower class and that sort of thing. And it's all done in Singapore apparently, and just looks like a lot of fun about socialites that are jealous and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the especially the title does seem a little bit dangerous on that front. I agree, but I guess it's to woe stereotype. I'll just say that there is a stereotype, whether it's true or not in all cases, blah blah blah. But that Asians are really driven to be successful, so maybe they think of it as very positive stereotyping to talk about crazy rich Asians. I don't know, but you're right. It just feels vaguely like Danger Will Robinson sort of thing.
Right. As opposed to the next movie I want to mention, which is Action White Hero. Oh, no, it's actually called Mile 22, and it's starring Mark Wahlberg. And this is just a Mark Wahlberg movie, which is described as a visceral modern thriller.
Oh.
So, need I say more? A rated R, 90-minute wide release Mark Wahlberg movie with John Malkovich and Ronda Rousey. Rousey, how do you say her last name? Ronda Rousey.
Rousey, I think.
Rousey, yeah. I didn't ask you, what do you think about Crazy Rich Asians? But I'll ask you in the context of Mile 22. What do you think of these two movies?
Neither of them are really popping up and lighting me up, except that Peter Berg is the director of Mile 22, right?
Yeah,
And he's done some interesting things, like he is one of the main guys on Ballers. He's big on The Leftovers, so a lot of HBO shows here. So he's been associated with some things that I do like, but I don't know. A Mark Wahlberg action movie, even a visceral action thriller, isn't necessarily number one on my list. So I don't know. Oh, Friday Night Lights, of course, Peter Berg did. So I don't know. I don't feel strong about either. That's not very helpful, but
that's okay. It's not like I'm going to make a decision right now anyway. So one last one I wanted to mention quickly, The Wife. Now, this is a powerhouse performance by Glenn Close, also starring Jonathan Pryce. People are saying, well, some people are saying it's her best performance. And Glenn Close has a long, rich career. It's kind of one of these retrospectives. It's after 40 years of marriage, she's helping her husband, who's the famous one, write a book, I think. And they've stuck it through and through. They've stuck it through 40 years of marriage, and she's trying to help him. He's being awarded a Nobel Prize. It's one of these stories where it's all about him, but she's kind of been behind the scenes in his life the whole time. So it's kind of got a feminist vibe to it a little bit. But it looks very talky and kind of in a good way. I'm just saying, I don't know how to, I'll stop. What do you think of this one? Have you heard much or seen much?
I actually haven't heard much or seen much, but I'm a huge Jonathan Pryce fan. And I don't know. It seems like the kind of movie that relies on dialogue, I guess, like you say, talky more than maybe other gimmicks. So in that sense, maybe it'd be my kind of movie. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely not a visceral modern thriller. But okay, well, we'll decide. This one's limited release. We have a couple of wide releases that we just talked about. I'm sort of leaning towards Crazy Rich Asians, but we might have other things to review that we go back that have come out in the last couple of weeks. So keep it locked to Twitter, as we like to say, and we'll figure out what we're going to see.
Right on. Well, it's TV, it's movies, it's Practically Culture. There are some picks for you. Go forth and watch. And that's this week's episode of Practically Culture. Join us next week as we review something. We got a lot of choices. So as Bob says, keep it locked to Twitter. And while the usual mini reviews and weekend picks, you can find more from us at practicallyculture.com and in your favorite podcast app. Also check out YouTube these days and follow us on the Spoiler Cast. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bow. Bob's at Bob Caswell. Send us a message, ask us a question. Let us know how you like the show. Get out there and watch some TV and movies, people. It's good for you. Thanks for rocking with us.
And have a good one. Oh, I almost jumped into